Hello, grade 12. Welcome back to the channel, Science Therapy, hosted by the one and only science therapist, uGobela Wemet. And in today's lesson, we are on finance. We are looking at questions on cost. So without any further ado, let's look at the question that we have here. So we have question 2. It says, Mrs. Smith would like to buy a car, but does not have the full cash amount, right? So we know something. If you do not have the full cash amount, the option that you have to opt for, obviously, is to pay for the car in monthly installments. Then she downloaded two payment options for two different cars as shown in table 2 below. So we are given table 2 and the payment options for these two different cars, the Ford Figo and the VW Polo. And then we can see all those conditions there. Then we are given here, pay attention to this here, we are given that the residual value is the last month's payment, right? So if we have to agree to the term agreement of the Ford Figo, that means on month 72, we have to pay the residual value. Here on month 48, we pay the residual value. That is the last month payment, right? Then 2.1.1 says, state what type of payment option is shown in table number 2. So we already spoke about that. We said this can be monthly installment. This is monthly installment agreement. Or we can call it a hire purchase. Or we can even call it credit option, right? So either one of these three is correct. Then we have 2.1.2. It says calculate the deposit amount for the Ford Figo. So in order to calculate the deposit amount, we can see that we are given 5%, which is 5% obviously of the cash price, right? So we say to calculate the deposit amount, that's 215,100, multiply that by 5%. And then we find a value of 10,755, right? So this is the deposit amount that she would have to leave if she were to opt to buy the Ford Figo, right? Then 2.1.3 says write down in simplified form the ratio of the term agreement of the Ford Figo to the VW Polo. Now, looking at the term agreement, we can see that for the Ford Figo, that's 72 months, but for the VW Polo, that's 48 months, right? So now, in order to write that one, we just go 72 is to 48. Then at this point, we obviously have to check for the highest common factor between these two values here. So the highest common factor is 24. 24 can go into 72 3 times, and then 24 can go into 48 2 times. Then your simplified form in ratio form is 3:4, right? Then there's also a way in which you could have done that easier. Could have just grabbed your calculator and just went 72 over 48, could have given you 3/2. Then all you had to do is write this in ratio form. Say 3:2, right? So also that could have been an option. Now, we have 2.1.4 says which one of the two vehicles will be more cost effective in terms of the monthly budget, right? So when they're speaking about being cost effective, this means which one will be cheaper or which one will be the cheapest in terms of your monthly budget. Now, looking at the monthly installments for the Ford Figo, we can see that's 2,999. But then we see with the VW Polo, you have to break the bank a little bit further and pay 3,345. So in terms of our monthly budget, we can all agree that the Ford Figo is cost effective, right? So you do not have to spend much per month. So it is the Ford Figo. Now, all these questions here that we've answered, this we can say there's are level 1 type questions because there's just nothing much that you should do besides having to look at the table that you are given and just try to come up with the solutions, right? So just answering that has won us about 8 marks, right? So there's a bunch of free marks that you can actually get if only you can just read your statement and be able to just interpret the information that is on the table. Nothing much is needed for that. Then 2.1.5 says, calculate the total cost of the VW Polo if the monthly installment remain the same throughout the contract period, except for the final payment. Now, note that statement. Why are they saying except for the final payment? We saw that the final payment is actually the residual value. Right. So with the final payment, you do not make the monthly installment. You do not make the admin fees. So the last month is reserved only for the residual value. Right. So note what I'm saying there, because that will actually affect how I calculate the total cost there. So they say we might use the formula. Total cost is equal to total value of monthly installments plus the admin fees plus the residual value. Now, let's go up to calculate. Remember, we are calculating for the VW Polo, right? So our eyes will be fixated on the VW Polo. So now, with the monthly installments for the VW Polo, we can see we are given 3,345 rands, and then the residual value we are given as the full amount, 116,759. But then the monthly admin fee, we are not given an amount there. Instead, we are given a percentage. They say there should be 2.08% of the monthly installment, right? So the monthly admin fee are calculated as a percentage of the monthly installments. So that means the first thing that we have to figure out there is the monthly admin fee, right? Let's calculate the monthly admin fee. So we are told that it is 2.08% of the monthly installments. Therefore, to calculate that, let's take the monthly installment, multiply it by 2.08%, right? Then we find a value of 69.58 rand, right? So this is our monthly admin fee, but note that this monthly admin fee has to be paid for a total of 47 months. Why not 48 months? Remember, the last month is reserved only for the residual value, right? Then in order to calculate my total cost, it is the total value of the monthly installments, which is 3,345 multiplied by 47, because Mrs. Smith will be making 47 monthly installments of 3,345, and also will be making 69.58 47 monthly installments of 69.58. Right. And then the last month, which is the 48th month, there she has to pay the residual value. Right. So in the last month, she pays 116,759. So this is when she actually completes paying off the car. Right. Then in order to calculate that, let's say 3,345 multiplied by 47. Remember, you have to do this step by step, then find the amount for this one. So when we multiply that, we get a value of 157,215. And then if we say 69.58 multiplied by 47, we get a value of 3,270.26, and then we obviously have to add the residual value there of 116,759, right? Then when we add all this, we find a total cost of 277,244.26, right? So this is the total cost for the VW Polo in terms of the monthly installment agreement, right? So for the retail price, she would only pay 220,300, but now because she's opting for the monthly installment payment, she would pay 277,244.26, right? Which I would say is not really bad. Then we have 2.1.6 says Mrs. Smith invested 60,000 at a bank for 2 years with compound interest. In the first year, she received an interest of 4.3% per annum, while in the second year, the interest rate was 5.1% per annum. Then they say Mrs. Smith stated that she would have enough money at the end of the second year to pay the residual value of the Ford Figo. Verify showing all calculations whether his statement is correct. So we always expect a question like this when we are dealing with our finance, whereby we are told of a certain claim that a person makes, and then we have to verify that. So this is always a question to be expected. Now, what we should do here is actually find out the accumulated amount that she would have from investing the 60,000 for a period of 2 years, right? And then we have to compare that to the residual value of the Ford Figo. So now let's start off by calculating the interest that she would receive in the first year if she invests the 60,000. Remember, this is compounded. This is compound interest, so it's compounded. Then that's 60,000. Multiply that by 4.3 over 100. Now we find that she would have an interest of 2,580 for the first year, which if we have to calculate the total investment in the first year, we would have to go say 60,000 plus her interest, which is 2,580. Then we find that in the first year, she would have a total value of 62,508, right? Then for the second year, because this is compounded, we know that the interest in the second year would have to be accumulated from the total investment or investment value of the first year. Then the second year, we take this amount here, 62,580, multiply that by 5.1 over 100. Now, when we multiply that, we find that she will have an interest of 3,191.58, which if we want to find the total value of the investment for the 2 years, then we have to take this amount here, 62,580, add it to the interest of the second year, which is 3,191.58. Now we find a total value of 65,771.58. Right. So this is the total value of her investment for the 2 years in which she invested that 60,000. Right. Now we need to compare it to the residual value of the Ford Figo. So let's say residual value. And then let's go back to the table where we'll see that information. Now, looking at the information for the Ford Figo, we can see that we are not really given the residual value in terms of the amount like they did on the VW Polo, but instead we are given it as a percentage, 30%. So it has to be 30% of the retail price or the cash price. So in order to calculate the residual fee, we need to say 215,100, then multiply that by 30%, right? Then we find an amount of 64,530, right? Now, her claim was that she would have enough money to pay the residual value, right? So let's go back to her claim on the statement. They say Mrs. Smith stated that she would have enough money at the end of the second year to pay the residual value of the Ford Figo. Now, if we have to look at the residual value of the Ford Figo and then look at the amount that she would accumulate from investing that 60,000 for 2 years, we can say that her statement is definitely correct because she accumulates 65,771.58 while her residual value is only just 64,530. So that means, in conclusion, we can say, therefore, Mrs. Smith is correct. So that's how you were expected to go about with this question, guys. Please, if you have enjoyed the lesson and then you have found it helpful, press that thumbs up button. And then if you are watching these videos and haven't subscribed yet, please press that subscribe button. But most importantly, share the link with your friends and classmates so that they may also find assistance. Remember, do not be selfish. We are winning as a team.